your local issues.
And that's a particular benefit for us here in a regional area.
The local people.
Yeah, good evening, Tim, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to come in
My
here
pleasure.
and talk.
Local concerns.
All the listeners can imagine how they would feel if they received that letter in the mail.
People are talking to Tim.
Tonight I'm sitting opposite one of the key players in federal politics. Rob Oakeshott, welcome to Time to Talk.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Time to talk with Tim.
By suggesting it just has 2 listeners, and that's rubbish, by the way. I know I have at least 8 listeners and I can prove that.
Thursday night from 8.
Much rather have 2 listeners than 2 brain cells.
The Hastings Zone, 2-Way FM, 103.9.
Well, there are spooky things around Port Macquarie, apparently. And no, I'm not just talking about my son's dirty socks. My 2 guests tonight are convinced of paranormal activity in our area, and effectively they're on a mission to investigate a number of key sites which they believe could be haunted, most likely by the spirits of our convict past. Paranormal investigators Sean Oldfield and Dane Groth join me tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
It's good to have you in. Paranormal activity, we're talking ghostly experiences, the unexplained, I'm assuming. Tell me some of those stories that people are sharing with you.
Well, one of the first stories that I obtained from a gentleman that's lived in Port Macquarie for the last 60 years. He grew up here. He owned a property on the outskirts of Port Macquarie. And over the course of the years, it's been a few different businesses. He's seen a ghost of a cowboy, and it only happens when it's raining. And when he sees him, by the time he realised, hey, that person shouldn't be there, it's gone. So one account was, he was fixing one of his trailers and heard some footsteps around him, asked him to maybe help him with a ratchet or something like that. And by the time he realised, hey, nobody's meant to be out here, he looks out and he's gone. So he's always wearing...
so he actually asked this ghost or apparition for help.
That's right.
Pass him a tool.
So, I mean, he's obviously seen him well enough to make that, it's a physical person standing there, but by the time he realises, it's gone. He's wearing a cowboy hat, and he's wearing a dry as a bone. So those are the 2 most vivid characteristics that this ghost has. He's also seen in the rain on a horse. Where it's located, you can see quite clearly that there's absolutely no horses in the paddock, but it's only when it's raining.
And where is this location?
It is close to where the new highway's been built. So it's between the old highway and the new highway on the Oxley Highway. Right. And you'll see there's some vacant land there.
And he's seen this apparition quite a few times,
Quite a few times. Over the span of 4 years, he saw this apparition maybe 3 or 4 times. He's also alluded to the fact that he's always been in touch with that side of things. So I think, a lot of people are sensitive to that side. I myself... I have a scientific mind. I'm currently studying applied sciences through the University of Macquarie. So I do have a really significant scientific mind. But when it comes to the unexplained, you feel things. You walk into a historic location like the museum in town, and you feel a heaviness. Most people write that off to no draft, lack of air. But when you're standing there and you feel like you're falling and there's no reason why you're feeling that, that is unknown.
Dane, have you had experiences with the paranormal yourself?
Yeah, I have had a few paranormal experiences myself as I was younger as a kid, and I lived near the TAFE University, I suppose you could call it. Yep. And across the road there's a cemetery. Yeah. I'd come home from a party one night at the racecourse, walked through the cemetery and heard sort of a half yell, half talk, didn't make any words out of it, and sort of proceeded in that in the direction of where the noise came from. Didn't think anything of it at the time. When I got to sort of the edge of the cemetery, I heard it again behind me. And it wasn't until I walked out I realised, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. No one would have been awake at that time. And I sort of just wrote it off at the time. But it wasn't until I was a bit older that I realised that, that was probably something paranormal, or a disembodied voice, they call it. And
a disembodied voice.
Yes, a voice with, no body.
Yeah. So, and was that the only experience you had?
Just with my sister passing away in 2001, a few things have happened that have been, strange and
like what?
There's when Mum cleaned out her apartment after she had deceased, she found a bag full of coins, and it was all 5-cent coins, and Mum sort of made the remark, it could have been, $2 coins, that would have been better, and sort of had a bit of a laugh about it. But then over the years, ever since, every time I'd be in a situation where I was in two minds, or was in a pretty heavy situation, I'd look down on the ground or look anywhere, and these 5-cent pieces always seem to arise, or, just...
And you see them as a message of some kind?
I do, and it could be nothing, but,
But you see a lot of them?
Yeah, I do. It's a bit more than a coincidence, I think. And
Sure. So take us through some of the hotspots in Port Macquarie, because that's why you're here. You're hoping people will come forward with their own experiences, I suppose, so that you can target certain areas which seem to have more energy than others. Already, I know you've identified some of those places around Port Macquarie and the Hastings region. So where are we talking about?
Over the last 7 days, I have been mapping. I'm pulling out a map now. All the hotspots that have been given to me as stories, some that involve private residences, which will be hard to investigate, there was one where a lady was babysitting about 20 years ago. She went to sit down after the kids were asleep and started hearing children through the house. She went into the bedroom where the children were and she laid with them. The children were dead asleep, and at that point she couldn't get up. She tried to stand, but from what she said to me, as soon as she tried to lift herself up, something was just pushing her back down. So stuff like that. She's given me the location of where that is.
Do they all centre around certain spots though?
The majority of the hotspots are through the CBD.
And apparently we have quite a famous ghost in our midst too, that quite a few people in the community know about, a ghost at a famous pub.
Yep, in the centre of town, there are a few historic buildings. You've got the Royal, which overlooks the town green area. There was a fire there long ago. Next to that, there's another pub that has quite a famous ghost. A lot of people in Australia know about this specific pub and this one ghost. There's a photo that has been circulating from person to person. They've seen, so it's pointing at the front door, and there's an apparition in a suit, but what you could see is the white lapel and the tie.
Very, very transparent. You have to look very hard to see it.
But it's a famous photo now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The person that took it, they took a lot of photos that day, and it wasn't for another week later that they were actually looking through the photos and just stumbled across it, saw this abnormality, and when somebody sees it and they go, hey, that looks like a person, more people will see it.
Are there any theories about who this person is?
There is a theory about a apparition called Slender Man.
Slender Man.
Slender Man.
Sounds like me.
And it's an old ghost tale, sort of like the Mothman.
Right.
The more and more you see this apparition, you will see him. If you see him once, you will see him again and again, and not only in one location, you'll see him around.
So people are still seeing him around Port, around the CBD?
Yeah. And the ghost story goes on to, if you see him more and more, trouble follows.
Is that
and
right?
a tragedy will occur.
And that is we're talking about it because that's a commonly known story in Port Macquarie.
It is, yeah.
I hadn't heard that tail end of it though, and I wish I hadn't. So if you see it time and time again, tragedy sometimes befalls you.
That's right. And there's some omens over the last 7 days has really unfolded. From clouds in the sky that look like skulls with the moon behind it shining through the eyes of one eyewitness, to Dane and I starting this group, and now it's taking off. So is Slender Man around Port Macquarie
guiding you?
Is all these events occurring for a reason?
Yep.
We'll find out.
Oh, well, I hope I don't run into Slender Man. So do either of you have any theories about ghosts and the paranormal? Why do these spirits hang around? I'm always fascinated by the fact that they always seem so grumpy, so angry, so mischievous. They're always throwing terracotta pots at people's heads rather than taking out the trash.
I think that's a bit of a misconception. You know? The spirits that we're hoping to investigate were people like me and you one day. They had a family, they had a job, they had a house, and most of the time some of the spirits might not realise that they're dead. They may have died very suddenly or very quickly, and may want help
and haven't passed over to another realm or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
They're stuck sometimes. Is that basically the theory, that these souls, these spirits are stuck?
That's right.
Yeah, that's one of the theories, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Sean, am I right in thinking this always happens at night, or when people are alone, or when people are working back late at work? Always innocent people minding their own business when these things happen.
Yeah,
Why doesn't that happen now while we're all together here with the lights on and everything?
I think it's your level of engagement. I mean, we're talking here face to face. We're focusing on our conversation here.
So, sorry, but to take up that point, that would mean that sometimes we're overlooking these things. Is that possible?
That's right. I think I've said it before. A lot of people may have experienced a paranormal event, but
not recognised it.
Maybe writing it off to something else, or just flat out not caring.
Like what sort of typical things might we have overlooked? For example, you come back and you thought, I didn't think I left that there. But
Exactly. Or, you're in your home, you live in maybe an apartment building, and you're hearing somebody banging downstairs on the wall. Maybe they're putting up a photo frame at 3 o'clock in the morning because they thought we should move that there.
And the logical brain will explain that away.
That's right. But, that may be the case. That may not be the case. Mm-hmm. Something may have happened downstairs. Somebody may not even live there. Somebody may not even be home at that particular time.
And that's something I think that we're wanting to change. If someone has a paranormal experience, we don't want them to feel as though they're isolated and feel as though they're going to be mocked or picked on because they've had a paranormal experience. We want them to be open, come out with it, tell people their story, and we'll support them. And my mother, she doesn't really believe in it. I find that most of the criticism may come from people with religious backgrounds. It doesn't fit with their faith. And, some believe once you die, that's it. Yep. You just go to sleep. And I hope that there's something more than that after you die.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned before, the scientists have got theories of other dimensions, and the amount of light or what we can see is very minimal compared to how much there really is in the world. So I think there's a lot to be learnt about what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think over time, that's an aim for our society to go and investigate that and bring in instruments to see different levels of ultraviolet light. I've got an audio recording device that picks up levels of frequencies that we can't hear. So there are tools to see that levels that aren't visible to the naked eye.
Well, you're called Port Paranormal, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The Hastings Macleay Paranormal Research Society.
Very good. And if people are interested in sharing their information with you or getting on board or joining, how can they do that?
There's two ways. You could phone me direct or text message. A lot of people they don't like that direct contact. My contact number is 0421 035 573, or they can visit our home on Facebook, facebook.com/Port Paranormal AU.
Very good. And we'll have that on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel as well for people who missed it, but they can call the station too to get those numbers. Thank you both for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
I think you're very brave for putting your name to it, and you obviously clearly believe in it. So, and I think everyone should have passions in life, and you two certainly know what yours are. So I hope lots of people join you. And
I think maybe you should come along one day.
I'd be too scared. I'd be too scared. I'm scared enough of reality without going into the sub-reality of life. Thank you very much. I don't need that. But it's been really nice talking to you tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Great.
Thanks, hopefully you can come back if you do find something and let us know.
Yeah, as long as the door's open, we'll give you the evidence over time.
Door's always open. You're listening to the Time to Talk program. You can give us a call now on 6585 3456.